Coming up on This Week in Radio Tech, it's our 500th episode. How about that? Tom Ray joins us. He's going to tell us how he seems to attract stupid. And we'll have some serious talk, too, about the last 10 years and what's to come. Coming up next on TWiRT.
This Week in Radio Tech is brought to you by Broadcasters General Store with outstanding service, savings, and support. Online at bgs.cc. By Angry Audio. Audio problems disappear when you get angry at angryaudio.com. By Nautel, keeping you connected with your community with support and webinars. Online at nautel.com/webinars. And by Max Connect Wireless, prioritized high-speed internet service designed for transmitter sites and remote broadcasts.
Hey, welcome into episode 500 of This Week in Radio Tech. I'm Kirk Harnack, your host, delighted to be here. Who thought we'd make it? Who thought 10 and a half years ago that we would make it this far? This is the show where we talk about everything from the microphone. Today I'm using a Sennheiser wireless mic just because it was convenient to hook up. And the light bulb at the top of the tower. Now, if you watched the last episode, you know I finally have one of those working in my studio. But today, I'm not in the Telos Alliance studio. I'm in the Southeastern Command Center for This Week in Radio Tech. I'm in Orlando, Florida, at a resort, and just doing the best we can with the bandwidth that we have available. So glad to be here for episode 500. We're going to take a look back at some previous episodes, not rerun video, but talk about what we talked about then, looked at how the technology has changed to now, and then look forward to where we think, the prognosticators on the show, think that this is all going. So that's what we're going to do on this show. But let me bring in my co-host. This guy is doing a remote from, oh my God, Chris Tobin, where are you?
Let's move out of the way here. Here we go. Well, I happen to be on a rooftop here in New York City. That's all I can say. It's a facility that broadcasters and all kinds of people do things from. And I thought this would be a great way to do the 500th episode. Why not from the top of the location where the tower lights are just above me? The microphone is here in my hand, and the transmitter is just below my feet in another room. So this is pretty good. Actually, today's transmitter for me is the Max Connect sitting next to me. I am on Max Connect. I'm using Verizon services through the indoor, or what they call a distributed antenna system in the building. So my cell site's only 2 flights down. So I actually got connectivity, it's working, and I have an IP phone here that I can actually make phone calls on, so it's working. Oh, I'm also on battery on both the camera setup and the Max Connect, so I'm technically off the grid at the moment, so I'm totally portable. I can move about. I am wired. This is a wired mic, not wireless, but at least everything else is wireless. So I'm using the Wi-Fi in the Max Connect to reach out to me about 6 feet away, so I'm not getting congestion from other Wi-Fi services to black out and cause any trouble. So good, and that's where I'm at. So yeah, that let's see, the little guy, that little building in the back there is. Well, you know what? There was a programmer here in New York City many years ago used to call it the Gorilla Building. So the Gorilla Building is just behind me. Yeah, that's how I'm going to leave. I believe it's copyrighted, so I'm going to just leave it at that.
Wow. That what a great place to. I think have I been on that rooftop where you're broadcasting from? Have I been there?
I'm pretty sure I brought you up here on one of your visits. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I think they were shooting Spider-Man 3 the day we were up there.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
Hey, I see. I'm glitching crazy. It looks like a max headroom effect. I swear I didn't turn on the max headroom effect. In just a few minutes, Chris, I'm going to reboot and start from scratch because I don't want the whole episode 500 to be looking like max headroom. Let's quickly bring in our guest for the show. We got part of the band back together, and that is Tom Ray is here. Tom, welcome in. So glad you could make it.
Hey, great to be back, Kirk. And hey, 10 and a half years. Oh my God. I can't believe that.
I know. We would have hit 500 episodes a few months ago, but we took a summer off, and that was after about a year and a half, 2 years, we took a summer off, and then got hooked up with the GFQ network, and it's been just great sailing ever since. Tom, we're going to be talking to you about some of your pet peeves. I think you have a couple of those. Yeah.
Oh, just a couple.
And I'm looking forward, though, Tom, to getting your perspectives on some of the technologies that we were espousing and using and talking about, 8, 10 years ago, 6 years ago. I've got some topics lined out here, kind of see where those technologies have gone, if we're still using them, if they were great ideas at the time, and look and see where we think technology is going from here. Tom will be back with you in a sec. Chris and I are going to chat for just a second about Nautel and what they're doing for us, during all this lockdown stuff. Man, episode 500, a big congrats from Nautel. Thank you, Nautel, for that. Nautel continues their interactive Transmission Talk Tuesday roundtables. They're going to continue this through July now. They've had such good response. Going to keep on going. The topics and registration online at nautel.com/webinars. Nautel.com/webinars. And the second thing, and what I really want to mention, though, is Nautel. They've been doing all these webinars and roundtables for the last month. Now they've heard some feedback from you and thought of a couple of great promotions to put out there to see if they can motivate you to upgrade your transmission technology. 2 limited time offers. The GV series has a 100-month warranty and a free a backup exciter. A free second exciter for backup for the GV series. There's also the NVLT series. Those you can now get a 5-year warranty, your choice, or a free backup exciter. Either one of those, take your choice, 5-year warranty or a free backup exciter. Call your Nautel rep today. Now, if Jeff Welton is your rep, you probably already know that. But if you want to make sure who your Nautel rep is, go online to nautel.com/sales. Nautel.com/sales. Find out who your rep is, give them a call, send them an email, get in touch. And if you're looking at all for a transmitter, now could be a perfect time to get one. They're ready to build one, send it out the door to you, and give you a special deal of a 100-month free warranty and a backup exciter on the GV series. And on the NVLT series, the 5-year warranty or the free second backup exciter. Thanks, Nautel. Nautel.com/sales to find out who your sales rep is, or Nautel.com/webinars to register for next week's roundtable discussion. And they're going to be going on all through July. All right. We're live with episode 500. I'm Kirk Harnack. Chris Tobin's here. And also Tom Ray is here. Hey, guys, the first and all I want to out here before we take our first break is back in episode number 8, 492 episodes ago, back in November of 2009, we discussed audio signal flow. Now, we did a number of these shows dedicated to like a foundation of AM modulation, FM modulation, signal flow through the path from microphone to transmitter. And we talked about the flow from the mic transmitter. And think about how it was 11 years ago. Compare that to how that flow is and different. And I'm going to toss to Chris and Tom in about 5 minutes. I'm going to try to get rid of Max Headroom. So what do you think?
Well, I must say the signal flow has changed considerably for all of us over those years. And I know Tom's been enjoying a lot of the IP audio technologies for some of his work that he's been doing over the last couple of years as well, as I and many of us have. And it's fascinating how things have changed. And, hey, Tom, remember back in, well, we'll say 2008 back then, the thought of doing something over IP in a mission-critical broadcast environment was still, for some, that's not there yet. It's not ready for prime time, I think was the phrase I was given a couple of times. And what about what was your experience with people back then?
Well, people back then, actually, I was one of the people who said, gee, this isn't ready for prime time because I had tried it and it hadn't worked all that well. But I got to tell you, I do a weekly national radio show right now, and we get it to the uplink with a Commerce Bricklink. It's right over the internet. Matter of fact, the way we've been doing it since the COVID thing started, Ron is down in the studio down in at his house in Jersey. I'm up here at home. I've got a little makeshift studio I threw together in the other room. So he's got the microphone and the telephone mix down there. Comes up to me on a Comrex brick. I feed it out on the same Comrex brick, all mixed, going to the satellite uplink. And on the other channel of the Comrex brick, I'm using that to actually answer phones in the studio down in Jersey. And we're using clean feed, so I can feed it back to Ron so he can hear what I'm up to up here. So it's changed considerably. Back in 2008, we couldn't have done that. I don't think we had the bandwidth available at the locations, but B, we just didn't have the technology there. It would have required several expensive codecs at the time, and now the back feed, I'm doing that on a website, and it's a free feed. So The only the only problem with that is the free feed is limited to 3 hours, which is not a problem for us because it's a 2-hour show. So we're done.
Exactly. It's like folks using Zoom and after 45 minutes, whoops, oh, sorry, gone, that's it. You have to pay for the rest. Yeah, no, I know. Well, I will say back then, I'll make it sound like it's ancient centuries ago, but early on, when the audio over IP concepts was coming out and things were being talked about, yes, I too was in the frontiering right after you with your IP audio stuff. And yeah, it was interesting. I will say it was definitely a challenge to make it work the way we thought it should. But since then, I must say it's become very fun. And I've listened to your stuff that you've done, and I'm doing similar stuff in some other shows. And yeah, Clean Feed's very handy. I will say it's been very handy for a few things.
And very
between the
bluntly, I'm
Comrex
using
products. What's that?
I very bluntly, I'm using in several instances, I'm using IP codecs, in particular the Comrex product, as STLs. Couldn't do that
Oh
back
yeah.
then either. So
No. I have several also being used as STLs, IP products, and yeah, it's worked out well. I will say that I think part of it's helped is the critical mass of the broadcast industry pushing and trying to get stuff going, and manufacturers realizing there was something there, and the willingness to make it happen. I tip my hat off to the folks at Comrex for definitely being out on the. So I guess what was the phrase? Bleeding edge on some of the stuff from the POTS Codecs technologies that I got to use at the early days and before it matured, and then the IP products as they were maturing, and now today with what they've got. And I think and kudos has to go to the folks at Digigram as well and Telos that have developed and created workflows now that you and I probably would have been like, you want to do what? Yeah, I'd love to do it for you, but no, we can't. Or if you like, we could roll up a truck for a certain amount of dollars, and yeah, then we can make it happen. Oh, wait a minute, that time slot may not be available on the satellite either. Yeah, now today it's like, what time? When? Okay, you're connected. Next, right?
well, it was funny. It's funny because you mentioned Comrex being on the cutting edge, and when I was with WR in New York, we had a remote broadcast one day set up. It was at the 21 Club, and we couldn't get ISDN. We were still using ISDN in those days. Couldn't get an ISDN line, so I said, okay, well, we're going to have to do it with with a Comrex POTS codec, which we had plenty of. And about 3 days before the remote, I got a call from Tom Hartnett at Comrex, and he said, got this thing I want to try. You got any remotes coming up? And I said, well, yeah, matter of fact, in 3 days, come on out. And he did. And he had a codec with a modem in it that was 4G, right when 4G came out. And I figured, okay, we'll put it on the air for the last 3 minutes of one of the hours. He can say it was on the air in New York City, and we're done. 10 minutes before the broadcast, all the phone lines in the building went dead. And we're sitting there with a POTS codec going, now what? And I looked at Tom, and he looked at me, and we looked at this box with the 4G modem on it, and I said, you're on. We did 2 hours in New York City. And I mean, I was just sitting there gritting my teeth and, biting my knuckles. And it worked. It was flawless. It was absolutely flawless. So.
Yeah, no, that's why I said I tip my hat to Tom and the guys, Chris and everybody there, that they really, in the early days, and even today, I mean, I'm not saying to stop. They continue. They're probably one of the few companies, along with several others, that are still looking ahead, still looking forward, still trying and say, what if, maybe this, maybe that, and talking with folks. And yeah, there's always going to be products and stuff you can come up with that just doesn't go right. That's okay. You got to learn from it. That's the way it works. But Tom, your experience is just like I had with several POTS codecs from Comrex in the early days when I was traveling overseas. And same thing. It was like, yeah, the ISDN just went out. Oh, now what? Wait, I got this little red box in the bag. Let me see what happens. Hey, look at that. And that was for a network too. So it's like, hey. But that kind of thinking is what gets you to where we are today, where I'm standing here on top of a rooftop with a wireless device just over there, a small little cradle point, and a microphone and a camera, and I'm talking to everybody. I mean, if I did this exact same setup 10 years ago, there'd be probably a crew downstairs connected to a truck. So it'd probably be a small 2 gig microwave link from here downstairs to the street, from the street to the truck, and the truck back to wherever. That's pretty much how it works.
I know this is radio. I know this is radio, but let's talk, just touch on it real quick. the TV codecs that are out there, and once again, Comrex
Yes.
makes one of those. I have a client that uses one of their TV codecs. Those things are amazing. They use two different modems on two different carriers, and they automatically switch through it, and it's seamless, and it's unbelievable. I mean, you can do TV now basically on a cell phone, and it's
Yes.
we can only imagine that back 10 years ago.
And some of the TV
Oh, yeah.
stations are sending reporters out with cell phones and a tripod and a wireless mic and maybe a light kit. Maybe I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying there's a lot of one person news crews out there now, especially in smaller markets.
Oh, you bet.
Yeah. Hey, it looks like I'm back. I don't think am I max headrooming? I think looking okay.
Well, you're Kirk. If you call that looking okay. Yeah.
Don't leave an
There's a
open-ended
softball
question
that
with
just went
Tom
down the
Ray.
line.
Hey, so we're talking about technology from 10 years ago and today, and you're right, IP and LTE. And I remember kind of back in the early bad old days of LTE when different work and there was changes in some of the APIs apparently, and it just wasn't perfect. But I think things are really settling in. It'll be interesting to see how 5G changes this. 5G being available on a number of different bands. I thought of us are going to end up using 5G in the 600 megahertz area because of its longer range. But if you're in a crowded urban environment, maybe the millimeter wave stuff. Chris, you're usually pretty well on top of this LTE technology. How's 5G going to affect doing remote broadcasts for broadcasters?
Well, I think it'll improve. It'll help. It gives options. I mean, the 600 meg spectrum that T-Mobile has, T-Mobile/Sprint, will offer a different type of 5G for many because it's lower frequency, whereas the other carriers are at the 24 and 28 gigahertz line. So I think what they're going to do is a lot of that will be backhaul, point-to-point, and probably small microcell arrangements in condensed or very compact areas where they can make it work. Because remember, at those frequencies, 24, 28 gig, rain fade happens with a high humidity day. I'm exaggerating, but it's tough for a massive appeal product. But I think all the carriers will have various ways to help it, and what that'll do is help to shed the load off the 4G network. That's still powerful. The LTE is a very powerful technology. The 4G, the frequencies they're operating at, the bandwidth, they can do a lot. So if they can shed some of the load or traffic, that's like say voice traffic to another place, that gives them more room with the data. So it's just options, and I think we will see a lot of interesting products, features, whatever you want to call it, from the various carriers over the next, I'd give it about 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, it'll be interesting if any one particular service, brand, technology, modem really takes the business by storm. A lot of people are using those connect right now. I happen to be on a cell phone connection right now. But one thing that isn't going to change is, I don't think, is the need for wired headphones. And I want to mention real quick my friends over at Angry Audio and this headphone box. And what we didn't have 10 years ago that we have now is this Angry Audio headphone gizmo. And look at the way it's designed with the curves. You can mount this to the bottom of your kitchen table if you need to. You can lay it on top of your kitchen table, upside down, if you will. It won't snag your pantyhose. For some of you, that's pretty important. It won't snag your pants either. And if you're wearing short pants at home doing your live broadcast, you won't cut your leg on it either because it's got these smooth curves. And on the backside of this amplifier, this headphone amp, it's got easy audio connections, audio in, audio out on the Studio Hub adapter connection there. You can just plug your Cat5 cable on your RJ45 connector right in there. You can loop the power and the audio from one unit to another if you've got multiple people in your studio. And you can supply power to it right there with a 16-volt AC power adapter. And you can inject power right there as well. So check this thing out at angryaudio.com. Angryaudio.com. It's the headphone gizmo. While you're at Angry Audio, they've got the whole line of Studio Hub products because they are Studio Hub now. Angry Audio is Studio Hub. So if you need one of these cable adapters with the RJ45 going to either male XLRs or female XLRs, or maybe you need to go to quarter-inch tip ring sleeve or bare wires, or a single connector that's an 1/8-inch tip ring sleeve. They've got all those and all of the adapters and patch cables. Speaking of patch cables, ask for your free patch cable. With every one of the cable adapters that you order, just got them tangled up. That every one of these that you order, you just ask your dealer for a free 7-foot shielded patch cable from Studio Hub through Angry Audio, and you'll get one free for every. So you order 20 adapters, get 20 cables that are 7 feet long. You can put them to use, trust me. And they're shielded. They're very nice. Check it out, angryaudio.com. Thanks a lot, Angry Audio, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. And if you like our show or just like having fun with us, please patronize angryaudio.com and ask your dealer for Studio Hub from Angry Audio. All right, it's Kirk Harnack, Tom Ray, Chris Tobin. We're talking about technologies and techniques over the last 10 years. I want to bring up the next one, and that is we spent a whole episode talking about things that make hi-fi better. And some of that things were the Shunmuk rocks, or the Shakti rocks, SHAKTI, the Shakti rocks. And, this is a bit like oxygen-free copper, right? And as soon as you open the package, well, gets to the copper, and I guess it's no good. And so on a serious note, we can make we can make a little bit of fun of these things. Maybe there's something to it. I don't know. But for broadcasters, here we have, over the last 10 years, P has really come to the fore. It's pretty foolish to build a studio these days and not use IP, because it saves so much time and money. The audio is bit for bit what went into the system. We're talking about 24-bit audio, so it's really high quality. And is there any reason to worry about, not worry, is there anything we need to do esoterically to make audio sound good? Or if we just follow the good rules of good engineering practice with balanced audio and IP audio, are we as good as we can expect to be? What's your Tom? Let's go to you.
Yeah,
Tom, what do you think?
Apply. Garbage in, garbage out. If you put clean audio in, if you pay attention to the levels, if you keep everything out of the clipping zone, and then build the studio with good engineering practice, and try to avoid ground loops and such, you come out with a decent you'll come out with a decent product. And you're right about the IP audio. Not only it cuts the time. I mean, I had a client. They LMA'd a station. We put the thing together. I actually brought all my remote equipment down because they didn't have their stuff yet. I put them on the air with my remote equipment, and I built the studio while they were on the air with all their IP audio stuff. And it took me 4 hours, and I walked out the door, and everything was done. So, boy, in the analog days, couldn't do that. You just couldn't do it. But if we keep everything, as far, like I said, you keep the basics, you'll be doing fine. The difference from the analog audio days to the digital audio days is that digital clipping is a lot different, because once you hit 0 dBFS, there's no more. At least with analog audio, if you hit top end, you get a lot of clipping, but the audio was there. With digital, boy, it's a different type of distortion. That's why you need to really pay attention when you're setting levels and make sure everything is, in a nice, comfortable zone.
Good answer, Tom. And when we're in the world of audio over IP, we tend to have shorter analog or shorter digital cables going to the various input and output devices of AOIP, whether it be nodes or blades or whatever it might be. So those shorter cables tend to make our jobs easier. Not that we can be sloppy, but they do tend to, we don't have to go to extraordinary lengths typically. Chris, do Shunmuk rocks have any place in your studios?
Yeah, they've been great props of some of the videos we've been shooting, so I like them. They're nice and perfect for that. Yeah, they work out well. They give some of a Shunwei type thing, for when we're shooting the videos. Listen, when it comes to audio, even video included, as Tom pointed out, it's good engineering practice, ground loops, all these things. Remember what it is you're trying to do, okay? You're telling a story, whether it's in music, whether it's spoken word. and understand the principles. If you've ever been to Steve Lampin's sessions at various places like CCPE or NAB or SBE, you may have listened carefully and go, that's interesting what he's saying. He takes a Cat5 cable and says you can put high-quality audio across this several hundred feet, and you'll be fine. But according to some people, it has too much oxygen. What can I tell you? These are the things you have to understand and learn. I record music, well, up until this pandemic, I've been recording music in studio twice a week with jazz bands coming through, and we have been playing with some of the wildest approaches to recording instruments and singing that probably some folks would look at it like, no, that's wrong. No, you're using the wrong microphone. That's not the mic to use for that type of sound or that type of instrument. And I was like, well, it's a Leslie speaker on a Hammond organ. This is the type of microphone I think sounds better than what you think should be, and this is what we're going to do. And sure enough, the recordings come out very nice. Our videos get acclaimed, recognition, and we're in good shape. So I think engineering practice one side, editorial or creativeness on the other side, and just understand how to bring the two together. Do not get caught up on, hey, I got an RE20 because that's what I have to use. Ooh, no, I have an RE51. That's what I got to use, an RE50. No. Let's think about this. And Tom knows what I'm talking about because he's worked in places where it's either this way or no other way, and it's like, no, you still sound like crap. That's not the microphone doing it.
So as we move into the years ahead, I think we're going to find more and more devices that natively have AOIP, AES67, Livewire, whatever, WheatNet, whatever, Ravenna, whatever it may be. It's going to have that. Or in the TV world that are compatible with SMPTE 2110-30, subset of AES67. And with that, we'll have no or very little analog wiring at that point. Everything will be in the digital world. And just because it's digital doesn't mean it's great. It means it has the potential to be great or even just about perfect. I would point out that pretty much gone are the days where sample rate conversion is a bad thing. In the early days of AES3 or AES-EBU audio, we did a lot of sample rate conversion, and it was done at the 16-bit level, and the math was often done at 15 bits or 14 bits, and I think some of it was even done at 12 bits in the early days, and this is stuff you could hear. This would add problems to the audio. So back, and I'm talking about literally 20, 25 years ago, SRC could be viewed as a bad thing, especially too much of it. Stuff would build up. But these days, sample rate conversion is, so we start out at 24 bits, and the math is usually done at 20, 21, 22 bits in these chips. And so we lose next to nothing, and we're always way better than 16 bits was. In fact, we're typically at the 20-bit level, even after sample rate conversion. So all I'm getting at is that staying digital, even if there are a few conversions inside, staying linear digital, I'm not talking about coded digital, staying linear digital, even if there's some things going on from end to the end, you're probably going to be just fine and better than the CD ever was at 16 bits. And analog, yeah, like Tom said, follow the right rules, keep things shielded and balanced. Short and good. I told him, I've done mic runs that were 1,000 feet long, and with a good mic at one end and a good transformer at the other, absolutely beautiful. No problem whatsoever. Hey, let's move on. Let's move to the RF world from the audio world. We've had a built in our world of RF interference. I mean, I've got a couple of wall warts, line lumps operating right around me here. I'll bet they're putting out some junk. I've got an LED light panel operating near me here. That's probably putting out some RF junk. At my own home, it's very difficult for me to use an AM radio and literally pick up WSM, a 50 kilowatt non-directional that's about 6 miles away from my house. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's noisy. And if a 50 kilowatt station 6 miles from my house is a bit noisy, we got a problem. And I've said it before and I'll say it again, I think there's no hope. I really think there is no hope for the AM band and amplitude modulation. And even if you put digital on there, you've gained a little tiny bit maybe, but there's still that digital cliff when noise takes over. Well, let me have your ideas on this. And Tom, you're the guest this week, so why don't you talk first about AM noise, AM build up of noise on the radio, and is there any hope, or are we just going to have to eventually abandon this and see what else we can get?
Yeah, you're right. And being a ham radio operator, the noise is really it's really bad on most of the bands, especially on the lower bands, 160 meters, 80 meters, 40 meters. But in the AM broadcast band, we've seen, it used to be many, many years ago, you'd get even a 5 kilowatt AM station, and you'd get that quite a distance away from the transmitter site, and it came in pretty good, and you got it in your house, and it worked very well. Nowadays, boy, you're lucky to have a decent sounding signal out to the 5 millivolt line, while the FCC defines 2 millivolts as pretty much the noise-free contour, which, I mean, you're right on the noise stuff. I mean, heck, I had an EAS box the other day that the person was complaining that they all of a sudden stopped getting their EAS tests from a particular station. Well, they had taken the radio for that station, and they had placed it on top of the EAS box, and the EAS box was throwing trash. And this was an FM, the station they were receiving. So it just trashed the FM. As soon as I pulled it off the top of the box, station came back and everything was great. Digital will help. Digital will help big time. There was recently a guest article in Radio World magazine. And once again, it started out with, back, when I was a kid, I used to DX stations all the time. And it was like, there were a lot of things I did as a kid too that are not valid anymore. Back in the days when I was a kid, I had 4 or 5 TV stations to choose from. I went to the record store and bought records. Maybe I'd go down to the bowling alley and hang out with some friends. That was my entertainment. Nowadays, you take kids. I mean, I look at my own 2 kids, and they've grown up with the internet, with Xbox, with Wii, with Nintendo. There's a whole lot of stuff out there to grab their attention, and they still, my daughter's 25, my son's 32, they still look at me like I have 3 heads attached when I sit there with a radio and start tuning around, to see what I can get, because they both say, well, why don't you just go to their web stream and pull it in? It's like, well, but that's not the fun of it. But if we stay in that world of, gee, this is how it was always done, we're not going to progress. And yes, the AM band is going to die, and AM radio is going to die. Let's go back to the mid 70s when PDM transmitters came in, and people started screaming, well, I can hear PDM. And then polyphase or multiphase PDM started, and people were screaming they could hear that. Yet all these things were improvements on the transmitter from the bounce and the the harmonic distortion that was introduced in the modulation process in the modulation transformer in the plate modulated transmitters. And now we're talking digital audio, and people yell about that. And it's like, well, boy, without the noise, as I've gotten older, I'm finding that my tolerance for noise has gone down. I was driving home one night, last fall, and I wanted to listen to the New York Giants game that was on. It was Thursday night. I was within several hundred miles of New York City. I punched up the station. It was noisy. I was dropping like every other syllable. Couldn't make it out because of the noise. I ended up reaching over and punching up Hulu on my phone and listening to the play-by-play off the television broadcast just because it was clean. I could understand it. So I understand where the kids are coming from. And if you're giving them all this digital audio, and you're giving them CDs, and you're giving them MP3s, and you're giving them audio streams to listen to, we need to come into the modern times. We really do. And down in Maryland, there's that all digital AM. That's got quite the distance, and it's got quite the sound. If you treat it properly, if you feed the transmitter properly and process the audio properly, digital AM can sound quite good.
Interesting. And I wonder how it will continue if noise keeps getting. And I've heard that that station in Frederick, Maryland, Dave station from Dave Colasar. Interesting. Chris, what do you think about the future of AM and all the noise buildup?
I agree with Tom. I mean, at the rate we're going, AM will probably be useless, will not be a viable business. I mean, it's a business. Broadcasting is a business that's somewhat unique in many ways. But you got to look at it. Tom's point is well taken as far as, say, the transmitter technology evolutions with pulse width modulation and everything else. And as we went along and changed things from tubes, solid state, or on some transmitters, tubes and solid state, and moving forward to the early days of MOSFETs, and people were belly aching about that too, and yet that's what you need to do. And I think AM, the only way AM is going to survive, not as an amplitude modulated analog signal, but in digital, is by both broadcasters, NAB, and the creatives come together and realize it's about what they deliver is what people are going to want. They don't care how they get it. Just as Tom's point with his family and others, you can get it this way, that way. Tom's driving in a car and has to go to Hulu to get what he needs because the other method just doesn't work. That's what you're up against. If you continue to perpetuate, well, that's how we used to do it, guess what? You've just given the others, known as competition, your dinner. So that's what you got to do and treat it. And in Maryland, Dave's station, that's what you do. You bite the bullet and go, here we go. We're going full bore, and this is what's going to happen. And then people have to get behind that. So manufacturers realize there's something, because at the end of the day, if nobody has a radio to hear it or a method by which to hear it, say on a phone, if it's digital, maybe there's a way the carriers will bring it in, or you can bring it on data. But the thing is, we're not thinking that way. And that's why competition is no longer traditional broadcast, but non-traditional broadcast. And that's what's going on. That's what we have to do. We've got to change our thinking. And that's the only way it's going to work. And I'm hoping that happens, because if it doesn't, it's going to be rough. And DXing, I used to do the same thing. I'm a ham operator. I did a lot of things when I was in my young age. I'm still young in mind, but it just, you just can't do it because it's things evolve. Hey, when I do drive here in New York City, I can tell you on several occasions trying to listen to a 50 kilowatt 770 kilohertz or 660 or 880 or 1010. It is very difficult when you're driving across some of the streets here when the Con Ed utility power companies' transformers below you are making noise. Trust me, I've driven through many neighborhoods going, why am I having trouble hearing this? It's just across the river. It's not even 9 miles across the river, a 50 kilowatt station.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, that's the problem. I shouldn't be worrying about that. It should be already a choice. I need a choice. I don't have a choice. And sadly, the choice would be to turn it off or find something else to occupy my time, because I have no tolerance for it. And it has nothing to do with age. It's just, I'm not going to do that. It just doesn't make sense. And FM stations had the same problem and still have the same problem with audience. They're not paying attention, and it's gonna be the same demise. And it just, I don't know. There's no easy answer. I'm not saying there is, but you guys think smart. You got to think true business, and we're not doing that. And you can't rely on just saying, hey, that's how it used to be. That's what we should keep. We got to keep it this way. Make rules that say we can keep it this way. Nobody's going to come to the table. It's a dining room with empty chairs. That's basically it.
This is our 500th episode of This Week in Radio Tech. I'm Kirk Harnack. Glad that you're along with us. We're at remote location. Well, Tom's at his house, but Chris and I are remote best we can with bandwidth and cameras. Hey, coming up, Tom Ray often complains that he attracts stupidity. I don't. Well, he's going to tell us some good stories about attracting stupidity, but we're also going to talk about some serious things like we talked a long time ago about processing your audio for streaming, and we talked about it well before there were even smart speakers out there, and streaming was just a tiny little thing. Now it's much bigger, becoming a significant portion of the audience for many broadcasters. So that's coming up too. Hang on for that. I'm Kirk Harnack, along with Chris Tobin and Tom Ray, for episode 500 of This Week in Radio Tech. Our show is brought to you in part by our friends at Broadcasters General Store, where you can get all kinds of things you need for remote broadcasting, including this beautiful, cute little console from Broadcast Tools called the Pro Mix 4. What's special about the Pro Mix 4? Well, aren't you glad I'm here to tell you? The Pro Mix 4 is simple. You can send the Pro Mix 4 out with, maybe the morning person, maybe the afternoon person, maybe somebody that's not quite so technically inclined. It's a full-featured audio mixing console, perfect for most any broadcast studio, but also excelling in remote broadcast and podcasting applications. It's got 3 mic or line inputs, as well as a dedicated line input. It can be switched between a balanced line input and the internal USB codec. So you can hook it right up to your laptop and get audio off your laptop and send audio to the laptop. It also gives you a balanced and unbalanced mix bus and mix minus output while offering 3 independent headphone amps. Plus, you get IFB and program pan controls and a comprehensive studio monitoring system. All that built into this little bitty box. It's just the right size to put on a desktop if you want to wire up a new studio and have just some small capabilities there, mix some microphones together with some audio from the laptop or maybe an external player. You got that right there built in. It can drive multiple AHR1 Plus headphone systems too, so you ought to check those out from Broadcast Tools. And it can be combined with an additional ProMix 4 or ProMix 1 unit with the ProMix Hub 6 and standard Cat 5 cables. That means it's easy to hook up. One more thing. The Broadcast Tools ProMix 4 has one thing that almost nobody else has, and in a small console, and that is it's got a contact closure for your on-air tally warning relay light. So you can hook it up to that relay output and get yourself an on-air light for the room so you can at least warn people before they walk in. Check this thing out, the Broadcast Tools ProMix 4. It is very affordably priced. It's available from our friends at Broadcasters General Store. You want to know these people. They are operating just fine through the lockdown and pandemic. They're here in Florida, where I am right now. And you can contact them at bgs.cc, or what I do, pick up the phone. They'll answer. 352-622-7700. That's 352-622-7700 for Broadcasters General Store. Thanks a lot, BGS, and thanks so much to Don Wingett, Broadcast Tools, ProMix 4, an ideal little mixer that is perfect podcasting, remote broadcasts, or just a small voiceover studio at your radio station. It's the 500th episode of This Week in Radio, about technology through the years since we've been doing the show and what we said about it earlier and where we think it's going. And our next topic, audio processing for streaming. Don't worry, we'll get to Tom Ray's stupidity. I mean, his ability to attract stupidity coming up next. But processing for streaming. So, boy, this was back, when was this? Back in 2012. So 8 years ago, we discussed audio processing for streaming. And this was a pretty hot topic around at my employer, the Telos Alliance. I've been doing a lot of work with Frank Foti and others there at Telos and the Omnia brand to help define what constituted good processing for streaming and what we had to be careful of and what we needed to avoid completely, what was important. One of the things that I like about processing for streaming is we don't have to worry about ultimate loudness. Now, I know there are some people out there who love their loud, I mean, really beefed up streams. I get emails from them. Hey, listen to a stream. Check. And they can be loud. But that's not necessarily what you have to do to be competitive with streaming. With streaming, I think your goal is to have it clear, audible, and have it at a consistent volume. I don't mean a wall of sound. I just mean overall, over time, a consistent volume so that a person's not reaching for the knob or the plus minus buttons on the volume control to turn the volume up and down. So you're just looking for a pleasing sound, a little punchiness in there so you can hear the drum beats, you can hear the fingers on the guitar frets, so you can hear the nuances of the voice. So you don't need a wall of sound, but you do need some consistency in lower level things perhaps being brought up. A lot of us listen to streams on a smartphone or nowadays on a smart speaker. So let's ask Tom Ray. Tom, you work with a lot of radio stations now. Do you have a particular strategy for processing their streaming audio?
Well, the first thing, Kirk, is if they hand me an old processor that they've had in the rack that they've had on the air, and they say, here, use this on the stream, I hand it back and go, nope, because that processor is not set up to do streaming. It has clipping in it, which even back in 2012, you wanted to avoid clipping then, you want to avoid it now. The codecs are a lot better than they were, many of them. But basically, you put a signal in, you're right, give it some consistency, give it some AGC, maybe medium range. You don't have to make it really fast. Give it a little bit of EQ if, depends on your format, depends on what you're doing. Give it a little bit of bottom end if you need it. If you're doing speech, I tend to boost the mid-range just a little, not a lot, but just a little to make it more intelligible. And then I use limiting at the final stage, not clipping, which is different because limiting will bring it down instead of just chop the top of the waveform off. And boy, you come out with a real decent sounding stream that, whether you want to call it competitive or not, it's competitive. It sounds good, and people will listen to it and not be annoyed. Kind of goes back to the old days before, wall of sound processing. When things sounded good, you just make it sound decent.
I agree. And I actually wrote a couple articles about this after interviewing Leif Clayson, Frank Foti, Mark Manolio at Telos Alliance about what's needed for processing a stream. And now that we have smart speakers, we do have a lot more people listening to streams. At the Harnack House in Nashville, that's typically the way we're listening to music or news, is over smart speakers. Chris Tobin, you work at a predominantly what's considered a fine arts station with jazz. We're not trying for ultimate loudness. What's your goal with stream processing?
I just try to just keep it consistent. I mean, what we do is very straightforward, both on the FM and on the stream. Just loud enough to be above the ambient noise in a very, maybe noisy environment. Say on the FM side, we have a lot of the audience are in the cars, Walkmans, and the Walkmans, portable radios, at the parks and beaches around town. So I try to make it so it's still robust, still exciting. It has a little bit of a, not a kick, but more of a, wow, it's something I don't recognize before. Just a lively effect. Nothing crazy. I mean, it's not like a wall of sound at all. It just brings out the highlights of the music, and it's enough to keep people happy. I've tested the theory a few times. I mean, it's not totally scientific, but it's not like a Munson curve test. But I've had several folks tell me that they've been able to listen in their car or driving down the highway during the summer, the top down. Literally, this is the phrase, top down, and they didn't have to raise the volume when they came to our station after listening to their hip hop or pop station. So I'm like, okay, goal's been reached. That's what we want. And believe it or not, program director has told me over the years he's seen a more steady PPM results with our system. So I'm going to go with keep it steady, easy and steady, and don't go crazy with the sound the wall needs. It's not necessary. It's not like the old days of push-button radios in the car and figuring out who's going to be louder to jump out and grab your attention.
Hey, I can see the sun setting behind me here. That's why I have to move around in my
Nice
studio
there.
here at this resort. Yeah, nice little glare. Oh, geez, look at that. I have to move around here. So I'll finish up this particular topic by saying this. Now we have really powerful stream processing available to us. I've got 14 radio stations. I think 10 of them are streaming, something like 10, maybe 11. And on some of those streams, I have a 3-band basic processor. It's the Omnia AXE style, the Omnia 3-band processing style. I'm totally happy with that, especially on our news talk station. And then on some stations, because I work for the company, I was able to get them at a good price. The Leif Clayson Omnia 9 style processing, and I can give a little benefit, a little nod to the that Omnia 9 style processing, but I will tell you, we're doing it pretty gently, and we're spending more time thinking about getting the left-right balance correct. So that processing can balance left-right, and that's kind of nice. We also do the undo. So if a song coming in is particularly hammered, in its original form from the record company, we do the declipping and we do the undo processing. So we come up with we're starting with something cleaner to begin with, and we try to get all of the audio to sound consistently good before we start multi-band processing it, and then we don't do that very hard. So that's my advice, and I'd be good advice going forward for a long time to come. It'll be interesting to see where we go with streaming audio if surround or Atmos becomes a thing. Of course, Atmos is generally it was associated with television, so you can see something on the screen and hear it in the right place in the room. That's a technology going forward, and it's already out there, and we're going to see more and more of it. Easy to do. In fact, the folks at Amazon even have an Echo product that can steer audio all over the room. It's pretty incredible, especially being just one box. So That's pretty neat. Let's move on. We got another topic to move in. Don't worry, Tom. We're getting to your stupidity. I mean, your ability to attract stupidity. We had an episode with a guy named George Whittam, and George is kind of like VO studio designer to the stars, right? If you've got a voiceover artist who needs a little help getting the studio right, George Whittam's the guy to call. And George gave us a lot of good practical advice. More people now are working home. They're doing their voiceovers at home. You can think of a disc jockey doing their work from home as a bit of a voiceover artist, a little bit different audience, but still the same goals there, a lot of them. Tom, tell me about people who you've been working for, setting up their home studio, and what do you try to do to mitigate obvious problems and get them the best sound from their home?
Well, Kirk, the first thing I tell them, go into the room you're going to use. Stand there. Close the door. Stand there for a couple of minutes, just quietly. And then clap. Does that clap end? Or do you hear it come back to yourself? Does it reverberate off the walls? If you hear it come back to you, very strong, especially if it's very strong, you need to do something to deaden that room. And a lot of people, as soon as you say that, they go, oh my God, I'm going to be spending a lot of money. I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to be doing that. Well, no, you don't have to. If it's a guy, I say, look, take the missus, put her in the car, go to the store. Go pick up a couple of tapestries. Go pick up a couple of bedspreads that would look nice hanging on the wall. And that will take most of the problem away. You want to give yourself enough room in the room to work. You don't want to feel like you're in a box. You want to have, you're going to be locked in this room for 3-4 hours. You don't want to get claustrophobia. What do you really need? You need a microphone. You need a pop filter for the microphone. You need a shock mount for the microphone. You need a mic amp, or you need a small board. Are you going to be doing voice work? Are you going to be recording things and or playing them back? Well, if you're going to be playing back, if you're a morning zoo and you're going to be playing things back, well, you either need a computer-based button box or you need something like a 360 Systems shortcut. And you get a small board, a Mackie board, a Behringer board, whatever, and set it up and make it comfortable. You have to live in that room. You have to perform in that room. And a lot of people make the mistake, a lot of people who don't know what we're talking about and haven't been there. You are performing. You're a performer. And you have to be comfortable doing that performance. So this is what I tell them. This is what I advise them. I also tell them, initially pay attention to what the metering is telling you. Don't slam the thing way up into the red. Keep it down into the green. Maybe let it get into the yellow, and don't slam it, and you'll sound just fine. And maybe Kirk will sound fine.
Good advice.
Oh, did we lose Kirk? Oh, there we go.
Oh my, he's frozen in time. Oh, there he is.
Really, I'm seeing myself okay. So, can you get your talent? You say you tell them to go home, let the room get quiet, clap their hands once. Are their ears tuned well enough to be able to notice that reverb?
Well, that's why you stand there and you keep quiet. You get into the room. If you start talking, you're not going to hear it. Chances are you're not going to hear it because you're hearing yourself come back through your head.
Yeah.
As stupid as that sounds. You've got bone conduction. The bones are vibrating. So you're hearing yourself not only bouncing off the wall, or in my case right now, bouncing off the computer monitor, you're hearing yourself through your head, through bone conduction. So if you stand there and get quiet and do a clap, you're going to be able to hear that. Whether or not you're tuned to this or not, you're going to know pretty quickly, is that room good or bad?
Okay.
Give it a try, Kirk. When you go back inside later, get everybody out of the room, send them out for dinner, and stand there and try it, and you'll hear it. Now you're tuned to hear it.
I've certainly done it. I just wonder if lay people could, if you could persuade a lay person to hear that.
Oh, definitely. Because if you tell them what they're listening for, if you're listening for a slapback, they're going to be sitting there saying, "Gee, did I hear that as a slapback?" I also tell them, if you walk in the room and you look around and there are no curtains and you maybe have a teeny tiny carpet on the floor and you've got a ceiling and 4 sheetrock walls, that room is too live. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Be terrible.
you need something on the wall, and it doesn't have to be expensive. That's the key point.
Chris Tobin, you've done a few of these for the stars and the not quite as big stars too. What do you find about helping people get set up at home, and how do you get their room kind of deadened down?
Tom's points are spot on, and a lot of the ones folks I've worked with, I go to the room they're going to be in. I say, okay, where are you going to do it from? What's comfortable? What do you want to do? And most of them, it's usually their living room or a small den area off the living room. And many cases, I tell them, okay, let's sit here. Let's see. Tell me where you're going to be comfortable, and we listen. And we do the clap test. We do the snap the fingers and listen carefully. Fortunately, on some of the places I've been to, they had bookcases and other things, so we had plenty of dampening surfaces that helped. Some areas, like just recently, last week, I helped one of our announcers set up in a spare room in the apartment, and it was as Tom described. It was bare walls, no curtains, a small throw rug on the floor, and I didn't even have to say a word. My footsteps alone were enough to make it loud sound. So I suggested a folding door behind her. She happened to have a nice tapestry type picture thing sitting down waiting to be put up on the wall, so this gave her the incentive to do it. And a blanket over the folding door, little accordion doors, right behind her, like literally a foot behind where she's sitting. And boy, first 2 recordings when she did it, before I got there, it sounded like there was a fan in the room, people walking around, there was a cocktail party. After we did the tapestry on the wall, the blanket over the the accordion doors, guess what? You're hard pressed to know that she's in her room. It's not a studio. So we confine the reflections to a minimum right around where she's at. It's perfect. And when she's done, collapse the accordion door, put it to the side, continue to use the room for her other stuff. She does other things. And then when it comes time for doing live, whoop, open the accordion and go. It all depends. Everything it depends on where you got to be. I had a friend of mine who was doing some voice work in his kitchen, and he had to because that's just the setup. That's all he had, no choice. So I told him, I said, let's get some foam, little foam with rough surface texture on it. Took a piece of cardboard and made a U-shaped piece out of it. And I said, all right, it's 3 feet tall. Your microphone is going to go halfway down inside this. It's a U-shape, and you're going to sit inside and talk. And you're going to do your thing, and then when you're done, you just fold it over, put it underneath the table. Again, nobody had a clue. We turned the gain on the microphone down, so this way it's not like it's, picking up everything possible, and balanced everything out. It worked. It's specific to your needs. There's no one solution. It's all about listening to the environment. Tom's point is spot on. You got to walk into the environment, close your eyes, do not be distracted by sight, and just say, listen carefully. And you'll hear things like, wow, did you know there's a clock ticking in the corner? Or did you know there's an air conditioner somewhere? And boy, once you do that, you're off to the races. You're in great shape.
Awesome. Good advice. Hey, this week in Radio Tech, it's episode 500. I'm Kirk Harnack, along with Tom Ray and Chris Tobin. We got part of the band back together again. We're talking about a few topics we've had and seeing where things are going in the future. I got a couple of things I want to talk about, but Chris Tobin, I'm going to ask you to tell us about your connection method right now. We talk about Max Connect Wireless being a prioritized LTE service. Yes, it uses hardware that you may have seen before, like Cradlepoint or other brands of modems, but it's not just about the LTE modem. It's actually about the what's in it. Ooh, what's that? Talk about Max Connect for us.
Yeah. This is the Max Connect antenna that I'm using. It's a Yagi, for those of you who are into RF and understand the concept. It's designed for the cellular bands of 600 meg up to 2.7 gig. And it's connected to main port on the SMA connector of the Cradlepoint Connect, as the other antenna is the aux, is just a little paddle antenna, so it's picking up. And because the cell site antenna, or the DAS antenna, is below me, not too far, there's plenty of RF up here for this guy to work, so I'm actually able to move it around, and it's doing its thing. You could use just the paddle antennas as well, and that's the Max Connect. The trick is to understand where the signal is, where it's coming from, and how to get to it, or get it to you. And it's working well. It's just what it is, just a little Yagi. Very inexpensive. I've been using it for a couple of events, and it works like a charm. And the Max Connect I'm using is also on a battery bank. It's running this battery bank. I can run for almost 6 hours before it starts to show one LED indicator that it's going low. And the iPhone I'm using for this particular video purposes, because of my location, I can't really bring too many things up here, is also on battery. It's from the same power bank, so I'm on battery off the grid, and you're seeing it all live in living color through Max Connect. And by the way, the Wi-Fi is what I'm using to connect to the Max Connect, that connects to the cellular, that connects to GFQ Network headquarters. So now you say to yourself, well, you can't use Wi-Fi, it's crazy. There's too much contention going on. The Wi-Fi from this device that I'm pointing at right here is 3 feet from the Wi-Fi router in the cradle point. No contention to worry about. I'm close enough. My RF is overpowering anything around me. Move this device I'm using right here. Let's move it out 15 feet, and I can guarantee you that my video will start to stutter, jitter, make all kinds of strange things. And that's the principle. But what the point I'm getting at is you need to understand these elements, the components of how to make it work. Just as Tom pointed out earlier with his radio shows and the work he does, you got to know what's going on. He uses different elements to make it happen, so the workflow is, consistent. And and also the other thing is we always say the same. We always say this all the time. We go, well, do a speed test, because that'll guarantee you what's going on. Just remember, speed test is just a snapshot in time at that moment. So you should do about 4 speed tests and see what the average is. And that way you'll know that you're in good shape, because that's what I've been doing, and it seems to work. And let me see. The speed test I did just recently came up with something really cool, which I thought was great because it's making it very feasible. Ah, there it is. Let's see if we can bring that up to you. You see those numbers? 32 meg down, 11 meg up. Okay, so I'm doing 720p video, which is typically about 2.5 megabits HD, roughly somewhere there. And then there's about a couple of percentage of overhead for the video, for the stream and everything else. So 11 meg up, not a problem. And down for me to be able to see the cues in the video from everybody else, the guest, 32 is great. By the way, the jitter was only 9 milliseconds. The ping time, 70 milliseconds, right? And network, what was it? The network dropouts, the packet loss was 1.5%. So you do the numbers, do the math, look at that and go, I got a pretty damn good connection. I'm going to have fun on a rooftop in New York City. And that's what I'm doing. That's Max Connect. Okay, I'm not, this is, let me see if I can bring this around just so you can see it. There it is. You see it?
Oh, yeah.
It's something little black. There it is. Yep. Nothing to it. That is what got reconnected to GFQ Network here in New York City, and we are having fun.
Good deal. Good deal. Thanks a lot. MaxConnectWireless.com. Check it out. Yeah, it's spelled funny, so write it down, remember it. Just look at our show notes. We always have it there. MaxConnectWireless.com. And I mean, there are hundreds of these out now at transmitter sites and in radio station go kits. Okay, it's time for our last segment. And Tom, Ray, it's going to be all yours, all your segment. You're the guest. Glad you're here. And your superpower has always been to attract stupidity. And so now you're going to tell us all about it. What are you doing to attract? What kind of stupidity do you attract?
Well, actually, the first one will be a kind of a serious one. With COVID being here, I got a call the other day from somebody. This particular client station owns stations in another market. I'm not going to mention where, but it was one of those areas where they just kind of opened up and no phased openings, no nothing. They just opened, and within 2 weeks. They have 7 people in the station with COVID, 4 people on the morning show, all with COVID. 2 of those people out of those 7 are in the hospital. And the phone call was, okay, how do we disinfect the microphones? And I said, that's a good question. So I made a couple of phone calls. Actually, I called the guys at BGS, and they told me about a product that was out there. We looked at it and priced it. And I took a look at the ingredients, and it was like 99% of the thing was alcohol. The rest of it was water and some other minor chemical, but all the guidelines we've heard is use alcohol. Okay, so we'll use alcohol. I told my client, go out and go to the drugstore, go talk to the manager, go buy, at least 70% isopropyl alcohol, or preferably 91% isopropyl alcohol. Get some spray bottles, and then go and run over to some place like a Lowe's or a Home Depot and get a bag of rags. They sell a product called Bag of Rags. Spray the rag and then wipe down the microphone. Don't spray into the microphone because you're going to destroy the microphone. You'll destroy the diaphragm. And I thought that was, pretty good advice. And, and I also said, if I were you, I said, you're using pop filters on the mics. I said, go out and buy everybody their own Nerf ball. Not a literal Nerf ball, but the proper windscreen for the mic. And then he calls me back. You know what these cost? I'm like, dude, you know what that alcohol is going to cost? I said, dude, stop. Just stop. Please stop. I said, I don't mind arguing with you on normal things. I said, I'm not going to argue with you on this one because very bluntly, we're screwing with people's lives. I said, let's do it right. I know you need to save money. Just stop. Do what I told you. You'll be good. Just go buy. He spent 2 hours on Amazon looking for pop filters. He's finding them for $5. I said, dude, those aren't going to work. Get the right one. They're using RE20s. Get the right one for the RE20s. Just spend the money. Oh, Lord. And it's stupid things like that drive me nuts. But one of the other recent ones I got a transmitter. Have a site. It's 25 kilowatt AM. New client. Their engineer had passed away. Natural causes. Just one day he just wasn't around anymore. So I walk into this place. Harris DX25, which is still a valid transmitter. They still support it. It's 25 years old. The thing is filthy. It is absolutely filthy. And they were having trouble. It wouldn't run above 10 kilowatts or 12 kilowatts. Well, yeah, when the output monitor board, when the capacitors are so full of crud that they won't tune properly anymore, yeah, it's going to drift. And I start looking around, and it's hotter than blazes in the building. And in the ceiling above is a fan. And there's a thermostat on the wall. It doesn't do anything. So, first thing I said to the owner, I said, look, I says, you only have one transmitter. I said, let's go buy an output monitor board. Just let's buy one. Got to have it. Well, that's going to be a lot of money. Well, yeah, but you're going to be off the air for at least a full day while I pull this thing out and go through it and maybe start replacing parts. Let's just buy the board. I said, and that fan has to get replaced. Well, why do we need a fan in the building? I'm like, you feel how hot? It's about 110 in here. You feel how hot it is in this room? Yeah. I said, you comfortable? He said, no. I said, well, neither's your transmitter. I said, you're not going to work up to your full potential in this environment, and neither is that transmitter. I said, preferably, you want to air condition this room to keep the crud out of it. I said, but bottom line, let's replace the fan, and then let's put some filters in those input vents and stop all this crud from coming into the room. Once again, look, I know you want to save a buck. You're going to end up replacing this transmitter. And that's a real good buck. I mean, a 50 kilowatt transmitter is about $170,000 these days. 25 is probably, 125. You spend a couple thousand now. You're not spending 125,000 later. And that's the kind of stupidity I run into.
I think we all run into that. And on the one hand, we're not always the one writing the check. In fact, we're often not. But we also do have the best interest of the broadcast. We want the broadcaster to pay us, right? For contracting or an employee. We want there to be money to pay us. We don't want the owner to spend money frivolously or in an unneeded way. And that does remind us as engineers that we do need to make sure we're not just replacing things because we don't want to do the work. I have been to stations where an owner said to me, engineer said, I got to replace everything in the power supply of this transmitter. Well, let me take a look at it. Divide and conquer. It was a choke shorted to the frame. Pretty common occurrence in a high voltage power supply. $600 later, not $4,000 later, but $600 later, the choke got replaced. And so we do need to make sure that we're giving good advice, but good advice also includes telling the owner, you got to spend money on this. It's the right thing to do.
Yep. And then there's the guy who decides to drink his latte right over the board and has an accident.
Oh, gosh.
And now you're explaining why you need to replace the complete motherboard, or you need a dishwasher to put the board in to give it a good bath.
I wish we weren't out of time, but we're out of time. Chris, Tobin, thank you so much for joining us from such an exotic location high above New York City.
Yeah, it's pretty exotic. It's the sun's setting. It's a nice view. Rain clouds were rolling in, but they rolled past, so we're good. And Max Connect is working as advertised, so I'm happy. So is, I guess Josh will be happy too. But yeah, that small building behind me here is just doing its thing. It's I think that's the only recognizable object. The beam across here is not going to do anybody any good, and the catwalk for the building management unit, which is what's used for the cleaning of windows, nobody cares about. But that one right here, this guy right here, just seems to be everybody's little thing. So the pencil building is in the scene as it was designed for, the gorilla building, and it's just one of those things. It's all about the visuals at times.
Chris, I want to thank you for being here for 500 shows. That's just awesome. You've been here for almost every one of them. I mean, there's probably been a couple of dozen when you haven't been available. Had something else to do, but thank you so much for being here with 500. Can I put you on the spot and ask if you're ready for another 500?
Absolutely. I have no problem.
We can go to 1,000?
It helps me. It helps me to find technologies and do things and say, gee, I wonder if this will work this way. Because I've used some wild stuff for TWiRT, and people look at me like, how did you? And Dan, I know at Broadcast Bionics is looking at this episode. He's going to be like, that guy, one of these days we're going to have to sit down and talk to him. He's got to find a place to live. But I said, it's a competition. The hotels are full. But it's okay. But yeah, it's the technologies. And this setup I'm using is this little guy. This is the Q mic from Digigram. Plugs into any audio input. Yeah. What's nice about this, and yes, you could buy those other items for, as Tom pointed out, you could buy windscreens for $2, or you could buy the $10 one. You could buy an adapter that will give you a microphone and headphone into a iPhone device or an Android device. But they don't work exactly the same. This has got active circuitry. I have to say I've had this now, I guess almost 300 episodes, and it's worked like a champ. And I have to say it's been consistent. It's consistently reliable and repeatable. That's known as success in business, in both profit and non-profit.
Thanks for all your advice, and thanks for 500 episodes. I'm looking forward to 500 more. Tom Ray, thank you for being here to help celebrate our 500th episode, and thanks for all your stories. They're just awesome.
Well, thanks for bringing me back, Kirk, and we have to do this more often because this is fun. It's just when I started my own business and went out on my own, I'm just really not around enough to do it, and I'm glad I was able to do it tonight. And by the way, Chris, don't forget to take that fake monkey off before you leave. Don't leave him up there on the building.
Yes, the Harryhausen model. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we got to go. Thanks to our producer, Suncast. He has put up with a whole lot this episode, especially my kind of connection issues and camera issues. I found out, by the way, what the problem was with my really bad video. The glitchiness was too hot. I'm out here on literally a 92-degree day in Florida, and usually my laptop is sitting in a 68-degree room. And wow, it has made a difference. My laptop, parts of it, the heatsink is too hot to touch. So wow, learn something new every day. I do have a backup laptop, and if we had to go to that, I guess we could have. So you learn something new every day. Thanks again, Suncast.
Sun here. What are you talking about? I'm on top of a roof in Manhattan. This iPhone has got the sun in the back of it. It's hot to touch. 90 degrees here. What are you talking about, a heat? What kind of product you got there?
I don't know. It's old too. This thing is 6 or 7 years old, this laptop. So maybe I need to get a new one.
Yeah, mine's an iPhone i6. It's iPhone 6S. That's old.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Hey, we got to go.
See?
Thanks a lot also to Andrew Darian, the founder of the GFQ network. And thanks for 500 episodes. We're going to try to do 500 more. And always open to your suggestions. Drop us a line from the website, or most of you know how to reach me or Chris anyway. So be sure you reach out to us and let us know what you'd like to see on the show. Got to go. So we'll see you next week on This Week in Radio Tech. Bye-bye.